Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. She said she was working late again, and for once I believed her right up until I opened our shared calendar and saw she had nothing scheduled past 5 p.m. No meetings, no client calls, just a vague label that said out. I stared at the screen while Murphy, our dog, not on a chew toy like nothing was wrong. I wanted to believe it was nothing. Really, I did. But then I remembered something stupid, something most people forget to disable. She never turned off her phone's location. A few clicks later, I saw the little blue dot. Not at her office, not at a client's place. A Motel 10 me from where she should have been. That's when I sent the text. Didn't know you got a job at a motel. I expected silence, or maybe one of her usual guilt-tripping replies. But what I didn't expect was the three dots, the typing bubble, vanishing, reappearing, vanishing again, and then nothing. 15 minutes passed. Then headlights hit the driveway. She didn't even park straight. She jumped out like the car was on fire. Her heels snapped. She left it on the sidewalk. Her keys hit the door so fast I thought she'd break the lock. And when she finally burst in, eyes wide, breathing hard, she didn't say, "What are you talking about?" She said, "How long have you known?" That's it. That's how the truth spilled out. Not with a confession, not with an apology, but with panic. Because liars never expect you to get quiet. And I had been quiet for too long. She stormed in like a firefighter responding to a false alarm, but I wasn't the one who triggered it. Her guilt did that. She dropped her purse, still out of breath, trying to find the words before I said anything. I stayed quiet. That's what scared her most. "Clay, seriously." She panted. "Are you stalking me or something? That motel text wasn't funny." I didn't laugh. I just pointed at her phone still in her coat pocket. "You forgot your location still on," I said softly. The color drained from her face. She looked like she'd been slapped. She reached into her pocket without a word, turned the phone away from me, tapped something, then held it against her chest like it could shield her. "You're acting paranoid," she snapped, voice shaky. "You don't trust me now." I didn't answer. I just walked past her straight to the door. "Where are you going?" she barked. "To get some air," I muttered. Even though I wasn't sure I'd come back, I made it halfway down the driveway before I saw her car. Still warm, engine clicking, driver's window fogged from the inside. I didn't have to open it to know something had happened in there, but I did anyway. I opened the passenger door. There was a water bottle, one of those protein gym ones tucked under the seat. Not hers. I knew because she hated protein powders, said they made her feel bloated. Then the cologne hit me. It wasn't mine. It wasn't subtle either. It was musky, sweet, clinging to the seat like it had been doused into the upholstery. I opened the glove box, half expecting a confession letter. Instead, there were 2 receipts from a gas station 10 minutes from the motel, one from tonight, one from 3 nights ago, both time-stamped exactly 20 minutes after she supposedly clocked out from work. I stared at those receipts like they could speak, like they could tell me if he was older, younger, stronger, funnier. But they just sat there quietly, ruining everything. She came out of the house barefoot, shivering. "Why are you going through my stuff?" she shouted from the porch. "That's not okay, Clay." But neither was pretending. Neither was being made into a fool while she snuck around and told me I was being insecure. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just looked at her and asked, "Is he married?" Her mouth fell open, and for the first time since I met Delaney, she had nothing to say. She stood on the porch, arms crossed like that would stop her lies from unraveling. I stood in front of her car holding 2 receipts and the gym bottle like they were crime scene evidence. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just repeated the question with the calmness of a man already broken. "Is he married?" Delaney blinked. Her lips parted. Then she took a step back like I'd pushed her without touching her. "I don't know what you think you found, Clay, but you're jumping to conclusions. Wrong answer." I walked toward her, not aggressively, just close enough to see her pupils shake. "You don't know if the guy you're sneaking around with is married." I said, "You accidentally cheat with married men now." Her nostrils flared and she looked past me like a child caught stealing who still believes there's a way out. "It's not serious," she whispered. That hit harder than anything else could have. It wasn't the cheating, it was how casually she said it. Like I'd asked her if she forgot to take the trash out. Like I was supposed to feel relieved that her betrayal wasn't serious. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my chest hurt so badly. I didn't know how else to let the pressure out. "Wow," I said, dragging the word like it might stall the collapse inside me. "So, I've just been background noise. 7 years of us, a wedding, a mortgage, and I lose to some gym bro one night stand in a motel off the freeway." That's when her face changed. Not to guilt, not to regret, but to annoyance. "Don't act like you've been the perfect husband," she snapped. "You stopped being interesting years ago. You never do anything spontaneous. You're predictable." There it was, the truth. She'd been dressing up with business meetings and lipstick-stained coffee cups. I was boring. I was too safe. I wasn't thrilling enough for someone who wanted to feel like she still had options. She walked past me toward the car. "Give me my stuff," she demanded, motioning toward the bottle and receipts. I handed her the bottle, but the receipts, I kept those. I watched her sit in the driver's seat, windows still fogged from before. She didn't drive off right away. She just sat there, probably texting him that the situation was handled or that I'd found out. Maybe she was asking him if they could meet somewhere else, somewhere I wouldn't trace, but I already had his name because printed on the inside of that protein bottle in faded permanent marker was the word Nash. A name I hadn't heard in over a decade. A name from a bachelor party I'd rather forget. A guy I once called a friend before life split us off in opposite directions. And now he was somehow tangled up with my wife, fogging up her windows and leaving his name behind like a trophy. That name cracked something in me. Not anger, not even betrayal, just this deep, bitter ache of how did we get here? I wish I could tell you I hesitated, that I wrestled with the decision to confront him. But when I saw his name on that bottle, Nash, everything else fell away. It wasn't just betrayal from a stranger now. It was personal, intimate, violent in the quietest way because Nash wasn't some random fling. He was someone who used to sit in my garage, sip cheap beer, and talk about how no one could ever break our loyalty. So I found him, not metaphorically. I found his gym, scrolled through his recent tagged photos, and waited in my car outside the weight room like I was tailing a suspect in a movie. Except this wasn't a movie. This was my life, and I was the fool holding the popcorn. He walked out wearing a smug grin, tossing a towel over his shoulder, unaware that I knew. I stepped in front of his truck before he could unlock it. His smile faded, not into guilt, but into this casual, almost bored expression. "Clay," he said, as if I dropped by for a favor. "Didn't expect to see you here, man. I didn't waste time. You've been sleeping with my wife." He raised an eyebrow like I just told him I got a haircut. "Guess the motel thing didn't stay quiet, huh?" That answer, that shrug, it did something to me I can't quite explain. I felt like I was falling inward, like my skin didn't fit anymore. "How long?" I asked, voice cracking like I was 13 again. He didn't lie. Since May. It was October. 5 months of lies. 5 months of motel sheets, of whispers, of sneaking back into my house and pretending nothing was wrong. 5 months of her sitting at our dinner table across from me, acting like her sudden appetite for wine and yoga was about wellness and not washing someone else's cologne off her skin. She said, "You stop trying," Nash added. Almost like he was offering me sympathy, that you were more like a roommate. She needed something else. I should have hit him. I know people watching this would have, but I didn't because all I could think about was how easy it was for him to say it. How rehearsed it sounded, like he'd already defended it a dozen times to himself. Then he said it. The thing that cracked me from the inside out. "She told me you'd never find out, that you were too soft to notice. And maybe I was. Maybe I believed too long. Maybe I clung too hard to the version of our marriage that only existed in my head. But in that moment I decided I wasn't going to give either of them what they expected. I wasn't going to beg her. I wasn't going to fight him. I just walked away. But I didn't go home. I drove to a place she didn't know about. And for the first time in months, I opened the secret email I made after I started doubting her. Inside, it was everything I collected: dates, receipts, copies of her motel check-ins, a few screenshots of Nash's gym posts with timestamps that overlapped her late nights. And I added something new, a photo of the protein bottle. Because this wasn't over. Not yet. The house felt colder than usual when I came back. Not physically, I'd left the heat on. But there was this weight in the air, a silence that felt like it was holding its breath. Delaney wasn't home yet. Her car wasn't in the driveway, which gave me time. Not much, but enough. I didn't want a dramatic confrontation, no shouting match, no crying on the kitchen floor. I just wanted her to see that I knew everything. Every lie, every motel visit, every gym session that wasn't about lifting weights. So I walked into the kitchen, cleared the clutter off the counter, and set the scene like a twisted welcome home gift. I printed out two things from my secret email: a receipt from the motel on her birthday, the night she told me she was too exhausted to go out. In a picture of Nash, sweaty and shirtless, taken by some gym influencer he apparently loved tagging in. I circled the time and date on both. They matched. Right next to those, I placed the protein bottle she left behind, and under it all, I slid a simple note written in my smallest, neatest handwriting, telling you left because of me, not because I found out. I didn't sign it. She know it was from me. She always said my handwriting looked like someone whispering. It felt fitting. I placed the whole thing next to the knife block because that's where she always went first after coming home. Something about needing to chop stress away with garlic and onions. She once told me it was therapeutic. Let's see how therapeutic this was. I didn't wait for her. I left before she could pull into the driveway. I drove around aimlessly, not even thinking about where I was going until I found myself parked outside an old diner we used to visit when we were dating. I sat there for hours just watching strangers eat, drink, laugh, living lives untouched by betrayal. It hurt. It made me ache for a version of myself that still believed love meant security. At 10:47 p.m., I got a text. "Clay, we need to talk, please." I didn't respond, not immediately. Instead, I opened our shared bank account app. She hadn't noticed the withdrawals yet. Bit by bit, I'd been moving small amounts into a separate account she didn't know about. I wasn't trying to be petty. I was just trying to protect myself. Because if someone can cheat on you for 5 months and still kiss you goodnight, they can take everything you have without blinking. A second text came through. "I'm home. I saw what you left. Can we please talk?" I didn't answer that one either. I just watched the little typing dots appear, disappear, appear again. She was unraveling. She didn't expect quiet. She didn't expect control. She expected the Clay who cried when we fought and apologized even when he wasn't wrong. But I was done being predictable. Instead of replying, I sent her a file from that email. The folder was labeled "If I Ever Need It." Inside were copies of everything, a full timeline of her affair, a list of lies, even screenshots of her deleting messages and locking her phone whenever I walked into the room. No threats, no comments, just the truth. 2 minutes later, she tried to call. I didn't pick up. I just watched her name buzz on the screen while I sat in that parking lot staring into the same booth where I once told her I couldn't believe how lucky I was to have her. Now I couldn't believe how easy it was to lose her, or maybe how long I'd already lost her without knowing. She showed up the next morning around 7:40 a.m. just as the sun was hitting the kitchen window. I hadn't slept. I'd been sitting on the floor of our guest room. Technically, my guest room now, thinking through every version of what she might say. Tears begging. A long gaslight-laced explanation. What I didn't expect was the envelope. She held it in one hand like it weighed 20 lb, in the other a coffee cup from my favorite cafe, the one she used to tease me for overpaying at. For a second, I thought it was some twisted peace offering like caffeine would undo 5 months of betrayal. She didn't wait to be invited in. She let herself in with the spare key. She never returned. I didn't say anything, just leaned against the counter, watching her like a stranger who didn't belong in my house anymore. She placed the envelope on the kitchen island and slid it toward me. "I know you're hurting," she said, her voice softer than I remembered. "And I don't expect forgiveness, but there are things you don't know." That phrase, "things you don't know," it's what cheaters say to make you feel like you're the one missing something. Like betrayal needs more context to hurt less. I didn't open it. I asked, "Are you still seeing him?" She hesitated just long enough for me to answer the question myself. "Delaney," I said, "you didn't come back to fix anything. You came to clean it up." That broke her act. Her expression twisted into something sharper. "You're not innocent either, Clay. You shut down. You gave up on us before I did. I just had the guts to admit it." I almost laughed. Guts? Is that what they call sneaking around now? I finally opened the envelope. Inside was a legal document. Divorce papers already signed by her. She'd even highlighted the parts she wanted. The car, the couch, a couple thousand from the joint account. As if this was a business deal and not the death of a marriage. No apology letter, no explanation, just bullet points and initials. I looked up and for the first time I saw it clearly. She wasn't ashamed. She was done. "This isn't about what you need," she said calmly. "It's about what I want. I don't love you anymore, Clay, and I'm not going to apologize for choosing myself." That hit like a slap in slow motion. She wasn't remorseful. She wasn't even angry. She was free like someone who'd already been living a different life for months and was just now bothering to inform me. But before she could leave, I stopped her. "Is he leaving his wife too?" She froze at the door. That was the first crack in her armor. "No," she said quietly. "He can't. He has kids." And just like that, the woman who claimed she was reclaiming her life had settled for being someone's side piece. A secret, a motel regular who brought coffee and excuses. She left without looking back, and I stood there with a coffee I didn't want and a signature I hadn't yet decided to give. But one thing was certain, this wasn't the end of her mess. It was just the start of my cleanup. The morning she left the envelope behind, I sat there for hours just staring at it. The coffee she brought went cold. The sun shifted across the floor, shadows stretching like time itself was pushing me toward a decision. The signature line stared back at me, daring me to make it official. A clean cut, a quiet ending, but clean endings don't exist when someone burns the middle of the story. So I signed the papers, calm, silent. But before sealing that envelope, I added one small detail she hadn't planned for. My own clause, the house, mine entirely. No discussion. I even underlined it and stapled a copy of our prenup to the back, the one she never expected me to keep, the one she laughed off as a formality. Delaney always underestimated me. She thought I was soft, predictable, the type to roll over for the sake of peace, and maybe for a while I was, but betrayal has a way of sharpening even the dullest man. Once the papers were ready, I didn't drop them off with a lawyer. No, I had a better idea. I waited until Friday. That's when I knew she'd be at her yoga retreat, the same retreat she'd used 3 times before to sneak away with Nash. I knew the exact location because I'd followed her once, just far enough to see her walk into the same motel lobby dressed like she was about to meditate. What a joke. So this time I booked the room next door. I checked in with a fake name, Bryce, because it sounded nothing like me, and waited. Sure enough, around 8:10 p.m., I heard her voice through the thin wall, then his laughing bed creaking. I wish I could say it didn't hurt, but it did. Even after everything, it still felt like swallowing broken glass. But I wasn't there for revenge. I was there to return what she left behind. I slid the signed divorce papers under their motel door. Clean. No note, just my signature and the clause about the house highlighted in neon yellow. Then I walked out. I didn't wait to see if she read it. I didn't want to hear the panic in her voice when she realized I'd taken something back from her for once. That night I drove home to silence. Real silence. Not the kind where you wonder what she's hiding, but the kind where no one's lying to you. I made myself a drink. I sat on the couch, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe without second-guessing the air until 2:34 a.m. That's when she called. I let it ring. Then another call came in, Nash's number. I didn't answer that one either. Then a third call came through. Unknown number. I picked up expecting maybe a lawyer, but instead I heard a woman's voice. "Hi, you don't know me. I'm Nash's wife." Time froze. I didn't know what to say. I'd never even seen her face. Only knew her name from Delaney's Facebook tags years ago. She cleared her throat. "I think it's time you and I talked." Her voice was calm, but I could hear the weight behind it, the kind that builds up from years of pretending. "I'm Nash's wife," she said again, like I might not have heard it the first time, "and I think we've both been living in the same lie." She didn't waste time. In 5 minutes, she laid it all out. The late nights, the workouts, the silent phone, the detachment. She'd suspected for months, but didn't want to believe it. That night, Nash came home to find the door locked and his gym bag on the porch. Inside it, she'd left a copy of my email, the one I sent Delaney with the timeline, photos, and proof. She thanked me, not bitterly, not sarcastically, but genuinely. "I think we both needed someone to light the match," she said before hanging up. Now it's done, and it really was. The next day, Delaney showed up at my door. No coffee this time, no envelope, just tears, the real kind. She asked if we could talk, not about fixing things, but about the past. She apologized, said she'd lost herself, and in trying to feel alive, she destroyed the life that actually mattered. I listened quietly. Then I told her I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because I refused to carry her shame any longer. That afternoon, I called my realtor. I didn't want the house anymore. Too many echoes, too many ghosts. Within 2 weeks, I sold it and moved across the state to a smaller place with creaky floors and a quiet lake view. It was nothing fancy, just mine. I started volunteering at a local history museum. Weird, I know, but something about sharing old stories with strangers made me feel human again. Made me remember that we're all a little cracked, but still valuable. Sometimes people ask if I'd ever date again. Maybe. But for now, I'm just rebuilding piece by piece. Not from the betrayal, but from the part of myself I gave up trying to make someone else happy. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just free. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever had to walk away from someone you thought you'd be with forever and came out stronger on the other side, share your story in the comments. Also, tell us your favorite moment from history that inspired you or changed the way you see the world. We love hearing real stories from real people, and don't forget to subscribe for more confessions that reveal what's hidden behind closed doors.